Tonight, when the modern world finally grows quiet, let us return to the early 18th century and uncover the brutal truth of life aboard a pirate ship. The stories we inherited are filled with buried treasure, fearless captains, loyal parrots, and a black flag snapping beneath an open sky. But the world behind those stories was darker, harsher, and far more human than anything later shown in novels, theaters, or films. For most men beneath that flag, the sea offered hunger, sickness, relentless labor, cramped quarters, and the quiet knowledge that death could arrive at any hour. And still, thousands chose that road, because the lawful world often offered even less dignity, less freedom, and almost no hope. Was piracy only a chase for gold, or was it also the desperate rebellion of workers treated as disposable tools? Tonight we will follow one imagined sailor whose journey is built from the documented realities of the Golden Age of Piracy. Through his tired eyes, we will feel wet timber beneath bare feet, smell tar and bilge water, taste salted meat, and hear the rigging groan in darkness. We will learn how pirate crews ruled themselves, divided plunder, faced fear, fought for survival, and finally disappeared. Danger waits ahead, but it will reach us slowly, like distant thunder heard from the safety of a warm room. You need not remember every name, date, or detail that drifts through the story tonight. Simply let the rhythm of the sea carry each fact past you, while your breathing slows and the room begins to fade. And if sleep finds you before the voyage is over, the ship will keep sailing, asking nothing more of you. For now, imagine the year is 1716, and you are standing on the wet deck of an English merchant vessel somewhere in the Atlantic. The hour before dawn feels cold, colorless, and heavy with mist, while a weak lantern swings above coils of rain-darkened rope. Your hands have become cracked and swollen from months of hauling lines stiffened by salt, tar, and the labor of every sailor who handled them before you. Beneath you, the ship moves like a tired animal, lifting slowly on each dark swell before settling into the hollow that follows. You have been awake for nearly the whole night, although the officer supervising the watch behaves as if exhaustion were merely another form of disobedience. Then a sharp order sends you toward the mainmast, where wet rigging rises into darkness and disappears among sails that snap and strain overhead. This is nothing like the adventurous life promised in crowded port taverns. This is the ordinary truth of maritime labor. You were born with little, and the sea seemed to offer one of the few roads beyond fields, workshops, debt, or hunger. At first, the sight of a great ship filling with wind felt like freedom, because every horizon appeared to open toward another possible life. But that first feeling of freedom faded quickly once you learned how power worked aboard a merchant vessel. The captain's authority is nearly absolute, and his temper can determine whether a mistake earns a warning, a beating, lost wages, or weeks in irons. Officers dine on better food in private spaces, while the crew sleeps packed together below deck among hammocks, sea chests, vermin, damp clothing, and stale breath. On paper, your pay sounds respectable, but deductions, invented fines, damaged cargo, and dishonest accounting may consume most of it before you return. Wages are usually withheld until a voyage ends, which means a sailor who deserts an abusive ship may lose everything he has already earned. And if disease takes you in a foreign harbor, your family may never receive the money for which you traded months or years of your life. The law, more often than not, favors owners and captains because merchants possess influence, while sailors arrive in court poor, transient, and easy to dismiss. Fear holds discipline together, and every man has seen a shipmate struck for moving too slowly after days of inadequate sleep. The work never truly ends, because a wooden sailing vessel is a complicated machine that survives only through constant human effort. Sails must be raised, lowered, reefed, dried, patched, and adjusted whenever the wind changes direction or gathers dangerous strength. Ropes must be inspected and tarred. Pumps must remove water leaking into the hull, and decks must be scrubbed until the planks are pale. Barnacles and weeds slowly collect beneath the waterline, reducing speed and eventually forcing the ship toward land for cleaning and repair. Storms can tear canvas, split spars, loosen cargo, and send exhausted men climbing into rigging while the deck rolls violently beneath them. And calm weather can be nearly as cruel, leaving the vessel motionless beneath a burning sky while drinking water grows lower and tempers become shorter. There are no safety harnesses, no reliable medicine, no forecasts, no engines, no radios, and no promise that help will ever reach you. One loose rope can crush a hand, a swinging block can shatter a skull, and one missed grip high above the deck can end a life. Even experienced sailors bear scars from falls, blades, splinters, burns, infections, and the countless small accidents of a moving wooden world. When one man is injured, the remaining crew receives his share of the labor while he receives whatever care the ship can provide. The surgeon, if there is one at all, works with limited instruments, uncertain knowledge, strong alcohol, and assistants chosen from among the crew. A deep wound may be cleaned with seawater or spirits, stitched roughly and wrapped in cloth that cannot remain clean for long. Broken bones are pulled into position and secured with wooden splints, while damaged limbs may be removed before infection spreads. Pain has little relief beyond rum, opium when available, clenched teeth, and the steady hands of men trying not to look frightened. Disease kills more sailors than battle ever does, because the ship provides ideal conditions for sickness to spread through a crowded and weakened crew. Below deck, the air barely moves through spaces filled with moisture, smoke, sweat, mold, insects, rats, and the smell of unwashed bodies. Hammocks hang so close that a man turning in his sleep may brush against the sailor beside him. Privacy is nearly unknown, and even a quiet moment belongs partly to the breathing, coughing, muttering community surrounding you. Clothing remains damp for days, skin softens and cracks, lice move through seams, and minor irritations become infected beneath dirty fabric. When rain enters through damaged seams above, drops strike faces and blankets throughout the night with slow and patient persistence. The food offers little strength, because at sea, survival matters more than flavor, freshness, variety, or comfort. Hardtack sits at the center of many meals, a dense biscuit made from flour, water, and salt, baked until it can survive long voyages. It is often too hard to bite, so sailors soften it in beer, broth, water, or whatever liquid remains available. Weevils burrow through the biscuits, but hungry men learn to tap them against a table, break them in darkness, or simply ignore the extra protein. Salted beef and pork spend months inside barrels, becoming so tough and heavily preserved that sailors give individual pieces mocking names. Dried peas, oatmeal, cheese, and occasional fish add variety, although damp storage, insects, and poor handling can spoil even these simple provisions. Fresh vegetables vanish soon after leaving port, and the body slowly begins paying for their absence in ways sailors do not fully understand. Gums swell and bleed, old wounds reopen, teeth loosen, joints ache, and exhausted men fade beneath the slow attack of scurvy. Some captains recognize that citrus fruit can help, but consistent prevention will remain uncommon for decades. Drinking water turns foul long before a voyage ends because wooden casks collect algae, sediment, insects, and the flavors of previous cargo. Beer and weak ale keep better for a time, while rum can be mixed with water to disguise corruption and encourage obedience. Alcohol brings warmth, relief, and companionship, but it also feeds arguments, accidents, punishments, and reckless decisions. After 6 months aboard, your world has narrowed to 4 things: work, hunger, fatigue, and the captain's unpredictable voice. You remember the wages promised at the end of the voyage, yet you have begun to suspect that clever accounting will steal much of them? Several crewmates whisper about deserting in the next harbor, though naval patrols and local officials often return runaways to their vessels. Others dream of joining privateers, armed ships licensed by a government to attack enemy commerce during wartime. Privateering can offer richer rewards than merchant work, but peace can transform legal raiders into unemployed sailors with dangerous skills and few choices. Then, beneath a gray morning sky, a cry falls from the masthead, and the familiar rhythm suddenly breaks. A sail appears on the horizon, small and pale at first, moving with purpose across the morning light. The captain studies it through a telescope, while officers exchange uneasy glances and order the crew to make more sail. Your vessel carries sugar, cloth, tools, and barrels of manufactured goods, valuable cargo that could attract either privateers or pirates. The unknown ship changes course as soon as yours does, confirming that the meeting is neither accidental nor friendly. Fear moves quickly across the deck, although every man tries to appear calm beneath the eyes of the officers. Muskets are distributed, powder is carried from secure storage, and small cannon are prepared along the rails. You have trained for this moment, but what is practice worth when violence is moving toward you across open water? The pursuing vessel comes closer, revealing a low hull, crowded deck, dark sails, and the speed of a ship built or modified for hunting. No black flag has risen yet, because pirates often approach beneath innocent colors to delay recognition and prevent their prey from preparing resistance. Your captain orders one more turn, but the merchant ship is heavy with cargo and answers slowly compared with the lean vessel behind it. A cannon flashes aboard the pursuer, and several seconds later a ball strikes the sea near your bow, throwing up a white column of water. The shot is not intended to sink you, because cargo resting on the ocean floor would be useless to the men giving chase. It is a command to stop, spoken through smoke, iron, and the threat of what the next shot might destroy. Still, your captain refuses, perhaps from pride, duty, fear of disgrace, or confidence that a naval patrol may be somewhere beyond the horizon. A second cannonball cuts through rigging, sending rope and splintered wood across the deck while one sailor falls clutching his shoulder. Burned powder drifts through salt air as officers shout and the crew struggles to keep the damaged sail under control. The pursuing ship closes the gap, and now you can see armed men gathered along its rail. Their clothing is mismatched rather than uniform. Their weapons vary in quality, and their faces belong to many nations and backgrounds. Only when escape is impossible does a dark flag rise, displaying a pale symbol designed to communicate danger before boarding begins. Pirate flags are not all identical, because individual captains use different combinations of skulls, bones, hourglasses, bleeding hearts, weapons, and human figures. Whatever the design, the message is simple: warning that surrender may bring mercy, while resistance may bring death. Every sailor looks toward the captain. Will his pride demand that ordinary men die for someone else's cargo? A few men remain ready at the guns, but others lower their eyes, loosen their grip on weapons, or glance toward one another in silent agreement. At last, the captain orders the sails reduced, and relief moves through the crew so quickly that it feels almost like wind.
The pirate vessel draws alongside with hooks, lines, shouted commands, and the scrape of hull against hull. Boarders cross the narrow space, carrying pistols, cutlasses, axes, muskets, and the confidence of men who have performed this ritual before. Their leader does not attack at once, because unnecessary bloodshed damages ships, destroys cargo, and creates enemies who may fight harder next time. Instead, the merchant captain is disarmed, officers are separated, and the crew is ordered away from weapons. A pirate quartermaster questions sailors about hidden cargo, recent ports, naval patrols, and the behavior of their captain. At first, you expect cruelty from every face, yet the questions are calm, practical, and surprisingly interested in how the crew has been treated. Pirates understand that abused sailors carry useful information and may willingly help men who appear as enemies to merchants and officers.
One of your crewmates reveals a concealed compartment after receiving a promise that ordinary belongings will not be taken. Another tells the pirates where the captain stores private wine, money, navigation instruments, and documents describing the cargo. The merchant captain calls both men traitors, but his anger now carries no authority over the deck. Then the pirate leader asks a simple question. Do any skilled sailors wish to join his company? To join willingly is to become an outlaw whose future may include battle, disease, shipwreck, imprisonment, or a public hanging. To refuse is to return to the familiar world of unpaid wages, beatings, spoiled food, and obedience without protection. This is not freedom against safety, because for a working sailor, safety has barely existed in either world. It is a choice between two dangerous worlds, one legal and unequal, the other criminal but built upon negotiated rules. You study the pirate crew and notice men from England, Ireland, Scotland, France, Africa, the Caribbean, and colonies across the Atlantic. Some wear stolen coats or bright sashes, while others look almost indistinguishable from merchant sailors except for the weapons at their belts. Several are missing fingers, eyes, teeth, or limbs, visible evidence that their apparent freedom has demanded a terrible price. And yet, they stand near their captain without the posture of servants, and they speak to officers with a boldness impossible aboard your ship. A sailor beside you steps forward first, explaining that he knows sails, carpentry, and the coastlines of several islands. Another steps forward, then another, until the possibility becomes a path formed by the decisions of men you have worked beside for months. You think of home, unpaid wages, the captain's cruelty, and the likelihood that another merchant voyage would simply repeat the same suffering. When your turn comes, you cross the narrow gap between the ships and enter a new world without ceremony. Useful hands are welcomed, but acceptance does not mean immediate trust, equal status, or access to every secret. Your name, skills, loyalties, and behavior will be watched until the crew decides what sort of man has joined them. The captured merchant vessel is searched carefully from stern to bow, while an inventory is created under the quartermaster's supervision. Anything that can be sold, consumed, repaired, worn, traded, or used aboard the pirate ship are transferred with organized speed. Sails, rope, canvas, medicine, tools, weapons, powder, food, alcohol, and navigation equipment may be more valuable than silver in an isolated anchorage. The pirates also inspect the merchant ship itself, because a faster, stronger, or more suitable vessel might replace their current one.
Prisoners are questioned separately, so conflicting answers can reveal concealed valuables or false information. Some personal property is taken, especially fine clothing, weapons, money, and objects associated with wealthy passengers or abusive officers. Ordinary sailors may keep basic clothing in sea chests, partly from shared identity and partly because robbing poor men provides little reward. Mercy is never certain, and some pirate crews are far more violent than others, especially when resistance has caused casualties. Reputation matters deeply, because a captain known for honoring surrender can capture ships more easily than one whose cruelty forces every target to fight desperately. So terror becomes a calculated tool, performed loudly and visibly, so that actual violence may become less necessary. When the transfer ends, the merchant captain is left with damaged pride, reduced cargo, and a crew permanently changed by what has happened. Your former ship is released rather than burned, because destroying every captured vessel would spread alarm without providing useful advantage. As the ships drift apart, you watch the familiar deck grow smaller and wonder whether you have escaped oppression or merely chosen another road toward death. Before you can claim a full share, the crew's articles are read aloud, so even men who cannot read understand the bargain they are making. Its difference is not cleanliness, comfort, or safety, but the unusual political agreement among the people crowded aboard it. Before you receive a full share of future plunder, the articles governing the crew are read aloud, so that even men unable to read can understand them. The articles differ from ship to ship, but they commonly regulate voting, discipline, division of prizes, compensation for injuries, weapons, alcohol, gambling, and conduct during battle. By staying aboard, you agree to these rules and accept punishments previously approved by the company. The word company matters because pirates often think of themselves as partners in a dangerous enterprise rather than subjects serving a master. During pursuit and battle, the captain holds authority, when hesitation could destroy the entire crew within moments. Outside combat, however, his power is usually limited by the articles, the quartermaster, and the willingness of armed men to continue following him. A captain who fails repeatedly, hides valuable information, keeps too much plunder, or behaves with cowardice can be removed by a vote. This arrangement is not modern democracy, equality, or justice, but it is startling when compared with the absolute hierarchy of merchant and naval ships. The quartermaster stands for the crew's interests, settles disputes, supervises stores, leads boarding parties, and protects the agreed division of captured wealth. His authority balances that of the captain, creating a practical system of checks within a community where nearly every adult man carries a weapon. Major decisions are often discussed before the mast, including where to sail, which targets to pursue, when to abandon a damaged vessel, and whether to accept a pardon. The debate can be loud, personal, and chaotic, yet the crew recognizes that cooperation is essential once a decision has been made. Not every man receives exactly the same share, because captains, quartermasters, surgeons, carpenters, and other specialists may earn additional portions. Even then, the differences remain modest compared with lawful vessels, where owners and senior officers claim almost everything, while sailors receive fixed wages. A successful capture might give an ordinary pirate more money than years of merchant work, although many voyages end with little or nothing. Those same articles may promise compensation for permanent injuries suffered in the company's service. Is this democracy? Not in the modern sense, perhaps,
but it is astonishing beside the absolute hierarchy of merchant and naval ships. This early form of injury compensation is not created from kindness alone, because visible protection encourages men to take risks during battle. It also reflects the shared knowledge that any sailor may be the next person carried away from a shattered rail. Rules for weapons are strict, because a rusted pistol or blunt cutlass can place every crewmate in danger during a boarding action. Men are often required to keep firearms clean, powder dry, blades sharp, and ammunition ready for inspection. Candles and open flames are restricted near powder, while smoking below deck can be controlled to prevent a single careless ember from destroying the ship. Gambling may be limited because unpaid debts create resentments that divide crews and turn small arguments into deadly conflicts. Fighting aboard ship is often prohibited, with disputes postponed until land or settled through controlled combat under agreed conditions. The goal is not moral peace, but the preservation of unity among armed men confined together for months. Women and boys do appear in some pirate communities, yet most documented crews of the Golden Age are overwhelmingly adult men. Rules concerning relationships, passengers, and sexual violence vary widely, and later stories often simplify a reality that was inconsistent and difficult to document. Race aboard pirate ships is just as complex, because some black sailors serve as free and armed crew members, while others remain captives within the Atlantic slave system. Pirates sometimes attack slave ships and recruit or free people aboard them, but other pirates trade captives, sell enslaved people, or participate directly in the same brutal economy. A pirate ship can challenge one hierarchy while reproducing another, reminding us that rebellion does not automatically create justice. Your own place remains uncertain during the first weeks, because new volunteers often receive smaller shares until loyalty has been demonstrated. You work beside older, experienced sailors who teach you the vessel's habits, the captain's expectations, and the unwritten customs not contained in the formal articles. The day follows the watches, not the sunrise, dividing the crew so that the ship can be sailed through every hour. Bells mark time, men change duties, and tired bodies climb into hammocks still warm from those who have just returned to the deck. There is seldom enough space or bedding for everyone to sleep at once, which makes the watch system practical as well as necessary. Your hammock swings with the ship and supports the body more safely than a fixed bed on a rolling sea. At first, every unfamiliar movement wakes you, but exhaustion gradually teaches the mind to accept creaking timber, footsteps, coughing, and water against the hull. Everything you own fits inside a chest, bag, rolled blanket, or whatever small corner the crew allows you to claim. A spare shirt, knife, cup, spoon, needle, thread, tobacco, dice, and a few keepsakes may represent nearly everything you own. Clothing remains practical, layered, repaired repeatedly, and assembled from purchases, captured goods, discarded garments, and items taken from wealthier prisoners. The familiar image of every pirate wearing a tricorn hat, striped shirt, earrings, and bright sash is a later visual shorthand rather than a uniform. Some men favor extravagant clothing because fine coats and colored fabrics display success, mock social rank, and make stolen wealth immediately visible. Others look like ordinary sailors in loose shirts, short jackets, caps, breeches, stockings, and shoes suitable for work on wet decks. Most days bring no battle at all. Boredom occupies far more time than adventure. Weapons are carried when needed, but wearing a heavy collection of pistols and blades during every routine task would be uncomfortable and impractical. A cutlass suits in cramped spaces because its shorter blade is easier to swing beneath rigging and between crowded bodies. A pistol offers one powerful shot at close range, after which reloading during battle may be too slow or complicated. Many boarders carry several pistols, firing and discarding them before relying on blades, axes, clubs, or whatever reaches the enemy first. Muskets can be used from decks and rigging, while swivel guns scatter small projectiles across exposed groups at frighteningly close range. Cannon remain the ship's greatest weapons.
But pirates usually fire to disable rigging, damage steering, frighten crews, and force surrender rather than sink valuable prizes. A cannon crew must sponge the barrel, load powder, place wadding and shot, aim, fire, and repeat the process amid smoke, noise, heat, and violent movement. One careless spark can ignite loose powder, while one damaged cannon can leap from its restraints and crush anyone in its path. Practice matters, and pirate crews may become effective gunners because their survival and income depend directly on ending pursuits quickly. Most days, however, contain no battle, and boredom occupies far more time than adventure. The horizon may remain empty, wind remains uncertain, and men repeat maintenance tasks while waiting for a sail that may never appear. Cards, dice, music, stories, carving, sewing, fishing, drinking, and argument fill the hours not claimed by work.
A fiddler or drummer can become valuable to morale, especially during long calms when heat and stillness make every irritation feel larger. Songs give rhythm to labor at ropes and pumps, turning many bodies into one rhythm when strength must be applied together. At night, stories pass through the crew, carrying news, rumors, ghost tales, exaggerated battles, remembered ports, and promises of wealth just beyond the next island. Most sailors cannot write with ease, so spoken memory becomes the library through which information and entertainment travel. A man who has crossed unfamiliar coasts or survived a famous storm may tell the same account dozens of times, improving its shape with every telling. Slowly, you begin to learn the personalities of your crewmates through these repeated stories and through the smaller truths revealed when they believe nobody is listening. One man joined after a naval officer ordered him flogged, another fled debt, and another followed friends after a privateering commission ended. Some were captured and forced into service, although pirate crews generally preferred willing men whose loyalty could be trusted in battle. A few are experienced criminals from land, but many are skilled maritime workers produced by the same commercial world they now attack. Their anger turns toward captains, merchants, customs officials, governors, and wealthy owners. Yet survival often matters more than any coherent political belief. The crew may speak passionately about liberty while preparing to steal another vessel's cargo, because human beings rarely live inside simple moral categories. As the weeks pass, the pirate ship heads toward warm waters where trade routes narrow between islands and merchant traffic becomes easier to find.
The Caribbean offers something else: sheltered coves, complex coastlines, friendly traders, corrupt officials, and communities accustomed to dealing quietly with men outside the law. Shallow draft vessels can move through channels too dangerous for larger warships, using local knowledge as protection against imperial power. Lookouts read the sea from mastheads, searching for sails, smoke, birds, floating vegetation, changes in water color, or clouds forming above distant land. Navigation depends on experience, charts of uneven quality, the compass, the log line, the lead line, astronomical observation, and careful estimates of speed and direction.
Longitude remains painfully difficult to calculate accurately, so even skilled navigators can be surprised by currents, storms, and accumulated errors. A captured navigator, chart, or instrument may therefore be as valuable as a chest of coins. What is a chart worth at sea?
When one hidden current or one mistaken estimate can place a ship far from safety. When the carpenter finds serious weakness below the waterline, every ambition must yield to the immediate problem of remaining afloat. A sheltered inlet becomes a temporary workshop where the ship can be careened, exposing one side of the hull for cleaning and repair. Stores are unloaded, guns shifted, rigging used to pull the vessel over, and men scrape marine growth while watching for approaching sails. Careening leaves the crew exposed because a ship resting on its side cannot escape an unexpected naval attack. Guards are posted on shore and high ground, while local informants may be paid to warn of warships entering nearby waters. Fresh water is gathered whenever possible, and barrels are rinsed before being filled from springs, rivers, wells, or captured supplies. The crew hunts, fishes, trades, and bargains, purchases livestock and gathers fruit, enjoying a temporary abundance impossible during long weeks at sea. Fresh citrus, greens, and meat can restore strength quickly, even though the connection between diet and disease is understood only imperfectly. On shore, clothing is washed, wounds are examined, tools repaired, and the ship's dark interior opened to sun and moving air. Men crowded together for months may scatter across the beach simply to experience distance, silence, and ground that does not move. Yet even this quiet anchorage remains temporary, because supplies disappear, rumors spread, and local loyalties can change with the promise of a reward. When the repairs are finished, the ship returns to the trade routes with renewed speed and a crew eager for a valuable prize. Several days later, the lookout spots a merchant vessel traveling alone beneath a steady wind. The captain studies its size, speed, armament, direction, and likely cargo before asking the crew whether pursuit is worth the risk. The target may carry sugar, tobacco, indigo, textiles, manufactured goods, silver, medicine, or provisions, but appearances can hide soldiers and cannon. A wealthy-looking vessel might also be a decoy, deliberately exposing itself to lure pirates within range of a naval escort. After a long discussion, the crew votes to chase, and the quiet routines of the previous days transform immediately into coordinated purpose. More canvas rises, unnecessary weight is shifted, weapons are prepared, and every eye measures the narrowing distance. The pirate ship first displays friendly colors and behaves like an ordinary trader hoping to speak with another vessel. Only when the target can no longer escape easily do armed men appear and the pirate flag replace the false one. The merchant captain attempts resistance, perhaps because his ship carries valuable cargo, because he fears punishment from owners, or because he distrusts promises of mercy. Only when escape becomes difficult do the armed men reveal themselves and the pirate flag replaces the false colors. You serve one gun rather than watching the whole battle, reducing the chaos to a sequence of tasks practiced until the body can perform them through fear. Sponge, load, ram, aim, stand clear, fire, and begin again, while smoke thickens and splinters move through the air like jagged knives. One ball strikes your ship above the waterline, tearing through planks and knocking 2 men down without stopping the vessel. The carpenter and his assistants rush toward the damage while the gun crews continue firing at the target's sails and steering. When the merchant vessel begins to lose speed, hooks and lines pull the ships together with a grinding impact. The boarding party rushes across beneath pistol smoke, and you follow, because hesitation would leave friends fighting without you. There is no elegant swordplay here, only crowded movement, poor visibility, noise, slipping feet, brief terror, and desperate attempts to control small areas of deck. After several minutes, the merchant crew breaks throwing down weapons when continued resistance promises only more death. Silence returns in fragments, interrupted by wounded men, damaged rigging, orders, and the slap of water between the joined hulls. The pirates immediately separate prisoners from weapons and station guards near powder, officers, hatches, and boats. Medical care begins for both crews when practical, because wounded prisoners may possess information and unnecessary cruelty can damage future surrenders. Only afterward do your hands begin to shake after the danger has passed, revealing fear that action temporarily concealed.
One crewmate has been killed by a musket ball. Another has lost fingers, and several carry wounds whose seriousness will become clear only later. The quartermaster records casualties and injuries because compensation promised by the articles must be calculated before ordinary shares are divided. Below deck, the captured cargo is examined, and disappointment spreads when much of it proves bulky, damaged, or difficult to sell. There is still useful food, cloth, powder, tools, alcohol, and a smaller quantity of silver than rumors might later claim. Pirate wealth rarely arrives in inconvenient forms rather than neat chests filled with identical gold coins. Sugar must be transported, stored, and sold through merchants willing to ignore its origin, while cloth and tools may be divided or traded locally. Coins are best because they are portable and easily shared, but many successful captures contain more goods than currency. The captured vessel itself is faster than your ship and less damaged than first believed, creating a new question for the crew. After inspection and debate, the company votes to transfer into the prize and abandon the older vessel. Weapons, stores, personal chests, sails, and equipment move across while the carpenter supervises changes needed for pirate use. The new ship receives another name, partly to mark its transformation and partly to confuse reports spreading through ports. The old vessel may be given to prisoners, burned, sunk, or kept as a companion, depending on its condition and the crew's needs. Your dead crewmate receives a brief burial at sea, wrapped in cloth and committed to the water before the living return to urgent work. There is little room for long mourning aboard a vulnerable prize, yet his absence becomes visible in every task and every shared meal.
The injured man, whose fingers were destroyed, receives the compensation promised by the articles before the remaining goods are divided. Every share is counted beneath watchful eyes, because unfair division can destroy a pirate captain faster than an enemy cannon. A pirate haven is not quite a lawless paradise. It is a fragile meeting place of weak authority, local need, corruption, geography, and opportunity. The crew now turns toward a friendly port, where traders, tavern keepers, craftsmen, smugglers, and officials participate in the economy surrounding piracy. A pirate haven is rarely a lawless paradise, but rather a place where weak authority, local need, geography, corruption, and opportunity briefly align. Merchants buy stolen cargo below official prices and then feed it back into ordinary trade through documents, intermediaries, and silence. Innkeepers exchange food, drink, beds, information, and entertainment for the coins pirates spend with astonishing speed. Carpenters, sailmakers, gunsmiths, surgeons, and suppliers profit from repairing vessels that cannot enter respectable naval yards. Governors may condemn piracy publicly while accepting gifts privately, especially when pirates bring valuable goods into struggling colonies. Such tolerance lasts only while the local benefits exceed the political danger created by angry merchants and imperial governments.
When you finally step ashore with money in your pocket, the solid ground feels unsteady after so long aboard a moving ship. The port strikes every sense at once, with cooking food, animals, smoke, perfume, sewage, music, shouting, bells, carts, and people unconnected to your crew. Pirates become famous for extravagant spending because few expect long careers, safe retirement, stable banks, or lawful property that authorities will respect. Money turns into food, rum, gambling, clothing, gifts, companionship, weapons, and stories told later about impossible nights.
Some men lose an entire share in days within days, while others purchase supplies, support families, hide coins, or seek quieter forms of security. The belief that pirates always bury treasure has little foundation, because shared goods are normally divided and meant to be used rather than hidden by one captain. A leader secretly burying company wealth would violate the agreement holding the crew together and risk immediate removal or death. Captain William Kidd's unusual attempt to conceal treasure helped feed later legends precisely because such behavior was exceptional. Treasure Island and other works of fiction eventually transformed rare events into expectations that shaped how generations imagined piracy. The famous treasure map, marked with a clear symbol, belongs more to storytelling than to the daily practice of Golden Age crews. Walking the plank is another powerful legend with almost no reliable evidence as a common pirate punishment during this period.
Men capable of shooting, stabbing, hanging, marooning, or throwing an enemy overboard had little practical reason to construct an elaborate theatrical ritual. The plank survives in memory because it creates a slow and memorable scene, perfectly suited to fiction even when poorly suited to hurried violence. Parrots and monkeys could be bought in tropical ports, but a colorful bird on every captain's shoulder is another later convention. Why bury treasure when shared goods are meant to be divided, spent, traded, and enjoyed while life still allows it? Even the so-called pirate accent heard in modern entertainment comes largely from actors and later performance traditions, rather than one historical way of speaking. Real pirate decks echoed with many dialects and languages, drawn from Atlantic ports, colonies, naval ships, merchant crews, and enslaved communities.
The eye patch may sometimes have covered an injury, but the idea that captains routinely wore one to preserve night vision remains an attractive modern speculation. Wooden legs and hooks were possible responses to amputation, although many severely injured sailors could no longer perform the labor demanded aboard ship. The skull and bones flag was real in several forms, but no single design represented every pirate crew. Historical truth makes pirates no less interesting because their actual lives reveal conflicts over labor, power, law, race, empire, survival, and freedom. During those weeks in port, news arrives that naval patrols are increasing and that merchants have offered rewards for information about your ship. Descriptions of the captain, the vessel, the flag, the crew, and recent prizes circulate through printed notices, official letters, tavern gossip, and frightened testimony. A large reward can transform a friendly trader into an informant, while a governor who once accepted gifts may suddenly discover loyalty to the crown. The crew votes to leave in darkness before dawn, carrying fresh water, repaired sails, medical supplies, powder, food, and several new volunteers. As the harbor disappears behind you, nobody knows whether it will ever be safe to return. The Golden Age of Piracy flourishes in part because European empires spend years fighting one another, releasing privateers and leaving distant trade routes weakly protected. When the Great Wars end, thousands of experienced sailors lose legal raiding work just as governments regain ships and attention for suppressing piracy.
Trade expands, insurance costs rise, merchants demand protection, and pirates become obstacles that imperial authorities can no longer tolerate. Governments answer with pardons, rewards, new laws, naval patrols, fortified ports, and public executions to break pirate networks.
The king's pardon promises forgiveness to pirates who surrender before a deadline and promise to abandon their former lives. For tired men, with money hidden ashore or families they hope to see again, the offer creates a believable road away from the gallows. For others, surrender means returning to the same poverty, wages, and hierarchy that first drove them beneath the black flag. Crews begin to divide. Some accept pardons, some pretend to surrender before returning to piracy, and some reject royal authority entirely. Some former pirates become pirate hunters, using knowledge of secret anchorages, habits, contacts, and sailing techniques against old companions. Benjamin Hornigold famously crosses from piracy into service against pirates, embodying the complicated loyalties of a world changing rapidly. Woodes Rogers, governor of the Bahamas, works to transform Nassau from a pirate refuge into a base of imperial order. Pardons thin the population of outlaw crews, while naval pressure makes repair, trade, recruitment, and resupply increasingly difficult. Your own company learns of these developments through captured newspapers and anxious conversations with coastal traders. The captain insists that one rich prize could provide enough wealth for everyone to disappear, but the promise sounds less convincing than it once did. Several experienced men demand a vote on accepting the pardon, and the debate continues through an entire evening. You listen while crewmates speak of families, debts, injuries, ambitions, and fears that have remained hidden beneath stories of freedom. At last, the crew divides, allowing those who want the pardon to leave with previously earned shares while the others continue sailing. You stay aboard, not because you believe the ship cannot be defeated, but because lawful life still offers no clear place for you. The smaller company recruits replacements, yet new men lack the trust and experience of those who departed. Weeks pass. Without a valuable capture, food declines, sails deteriorate, and every unfamiliar vessel may carry hunters rather than cargo. The sea once looked open and limitless. Now it feels crossed by invisible lines, all tightening around the ship. One morning, the lookout sees two sails approaching from different directions with the disciplined movement of naval vessels. The captain calls for full sail, but the hull is fouled, the wind uncertain, and the pursuing ships positioned to close possible routes. There is no vote now during the chase because the articles give the captain authority while danger is immediate. Men begin throwing weight overboard by throwing unnecessary weight overboard, including damaged equipment, spare timber, and goods once considered valuable.
Water barrels and cannon cannot all be sacrificed, because escape without supplies or defense would only postpone defeat.
The naval ships continue to gain, their clean hulls and trained crews revealing the resources of governments now committed to ending your world. By the afternoon, cannon fire begins at long range, and the pirate ship turns toward shallow water where larger pursuers may hesitate. Local knowledge still offers hope, but a damaged mast reduces speed before the dangerous channel can be reached. Then a ball strikes near the stern, killing the helmsman and tearing through the structure controlling the rudder. Carpenters struggle with emergency repairs, while sail handlers struggle to keep the wounded vessel from turning helplessly across the wind. The crew now faces its final decision between resistance, surrender, grounding the ship, or abandoning it in boats under enemy fire. Your captain chooses battle,
knowing that his reputation may make pardon or mercy impossible. Others plead that ordinary crew members may still receive reduced sentences if they surrender before more naval sailors are killed. The quartermaster tries to restore order, but cannon impacts now arrive faster than discussion can produce agreement. Then, a mast falls across the deck in a storm of rope, canvas, wood, and screaming men. With almost all movement lost, the pirate flag is lowered, and white cloth rises through smoke above the shattered rail. Then, after hours of pursuit, the guns fall quiet, and even the sea seems to wait for the meaning of surrender. Naval sailors come aboard with weapons ready, bind survivors, secure powder, inspect damage, and search for wanted captains. You are locked in irons beside men who once voted on destinations and shared prizes, while authority returns in the uniformed shape of the state. The wounded receive what care can be spared according to urgency, resources, rank, and the practical need to keep prisoners alive for questioning. The captured ship is towed toward a colonial port, moving slowly beneath a flag that now belongs to its conquerors. During the slow journey, officials record names, birthplaces, roles, crimes, captured cargo, and testimony that may be used at trial. Some prisoners insist they were forced aboard, a defense that may be true, false, or impossible to prove after months among pirates. Others trade information about captains, traders, harbors, and officials in exchange for the hope of mercy. When the port finally appears, crowds gather along the waterfront to see the notorious prisoners described in rumor and print. The trial unfolds before an admiralty court where evidence may include witnesses, captured documents, previous proclamations, and possession of stolen goods. Known leaders face the greatest likelihood of execution, while younger sailors, coerced recruits, informants, and useful witnesses may receive different sentences.
Your imagined story may end at the gallows, in prison, through forced naval service, by transportation, or with an uncertain act of mercy. Many real pirates die violently, but others accept pardons, escape records, change names, return to ordinary work, or disappear into communities around the Atlantic. History remembers the famous captains because courts, newspapers, victims, and later writers preserve their names, while thousands of ordinary crew members remain shadows. Blackbeard becomes a symbol of theatrical terror, Bartholomew Roberts of extraordinary success, and Anne Bonny and Mary Read of women who entered a heavily male world. Their stories must be rebuilt from sources shaped by law, commerce, propaganda, entertainment, memory, and the appetite of readers for dramatic lives. A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724 under the name Captain Charles Johnson, powerfully influences nearly every later image of the pirate age. The book combines valuable information with uncertain attribution, vivid storytelling, moral judgment, and details historians continue to debate. 19th century fiction adds still more treasure maps, romantic rebels, exotic islands, and unforgettable villains, transforming maritime criminals into permanent figures of popular culture. Theater, illustration, film, and tourism continue refining the costume until audiences recognize a pirate instantly from a few carefully repeated symbols. Behind the familiar costume stands the exhausted merchant sailor, alone on a wet deck before dawn, wondering whether another life is possible. His decision to join a pirate crew grows from brutality, inequality, opportunity, anger, fear, companionship, and the dangerous attraction of having a voice. The pirate ship offers more participation and reward than many lawful workplaces, but it survives by theft, coercion, violence, and commerce tied to an exploitative Atlantic world. Its democracy is real but limited. its freedom genuine for some, but denied to others, and its promise of wealth always shadowed by injury and death. That contradiction is the brutal truth beneath the legend. Piracy could resist oppression and still become another source of suffering. As our voyage ends, imagine the captured ship fading into evening mist, while the sea slowly smooths the path behind it. The shouted orders, cannon smoke, crowded taverns, and restless debates drift away, until only dark water and soft wind remain. Somewhere beyond the horizon, merchant sailors still keep watch. Naval vessels still follow orders, and another desperate crew considers raising a black flag. The Golden Age lasts only a few decades, yet its stories endure because they hold dreams of escape, equality, danger, and life beyond ordinary rules. Let those distant stories drift away now, and keep only the steady rhythm of a wooden hull rising and falling on a calm night sea.
Your room is quiet, the voyage is over, and there is nothing more you need to do, remember, decide, or prepare. Thank you for traveling through this difficult and fascinating history, and may the gentle darkness bring you deep, peaceful, uninterrupted sleep.